Hello there, everyone. So, I'm about to start secondary school. Now, I might mean less frequent uploads, but I mean, I don't know if you can tell my upload schedule is actually pretty bad at the moment. So I'm going to do drawings on around the map on what I would say, the best, my school years. I'm going to be drawing them out. So let's just get straight onto it. Starting off with year one, or reception, because in the UK, whenever you go into school, you start off with reception. Reception is basically you just place. Also, I've got rubbish at drawing, so don't be too mad. You just play. So imagine this is me. I have to run away from Big Ball Potato Head here. Also known as I'm just going to say a random name, Bob. So I'm running away from him. Like I said, my drawings are rubbish, so that's basically what reception is. However, I have a vivid memory in reception. So in our school, or primary school I should say, we had a thing called dots. Remember me getting a dot because I didn't want to be in tag. So this is how it played out. Here is me saying, no, it. I don't want to be it. Then everyone around here just wondering and nice, but they were like, oh, all right. And then, let me just rub this out. A teacher came over, basically said, well done, Harry, you'll get a dot. Also, if you have negative brain cells, my name is Harry. Hello. Yeah. So that's basically what happened in year one. Earlier, sorry. Now in year one, I remember year one was a very good year for me. First off, well, the classroom was actually really small. This was the size of my classroom as just like drawing 1 to 1030 scale, actually. I actually remember, what was it? I don't know. But, oh God, anyways. So my teacher was called Miss Whitehouse. And I don't know why, but I got really along, for some reason. I just had a really good year in year one, because I don't know why, but I felt like Miss Whitehouse was treating me better. That's actually a thing with a lot of teachers at my school. I just felt like I was treated better, and I don't really like that. Because, yes, I enjoy being treated well, but I think everyone should be treated equally. I know I sound communist here, but still. So, anyways, this was my year one teacher. This is basically all of us sitting down on the mat. And year one is like, 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah. So, and then I remember, because there was this side teacher. I know I said I vividly remember year one, but, there was this other teacher, assistant teacher. This person was called Miss Ball. She was called Miss Ball. And I remember I was on the table with, how do I say it? Smarty Pants. No, not like brain smart. Smarty Pants. The Smarty Company. Anyways, so I was on this table here. And when you're a kid, you sometimes imagine things that aren't really happening. I can just imagine this is me here. And then there's a couple, and then the Smarty Pantses were and then I'm just looking over at one other person, and they're like, what do we do here? What do we do to solve 2 × 2? And then I'm just looking there. This was English one time. So then I'm just sitting there. I was a crybaby. So I was just... So everyone was like sitting there, and Miss Ball, she said, how do you spell of? And everyone just, in their books, they put O-F. Now, because I call myself the dumbest of the smarty pantses, I said O-V. O-V. Yeah, and Miss Ball, Miss Ball pointed me out and said, no, that is not how you spell of. Now, I was like, alright, I learned that's not how you spell it, but she then decided to take the mick out of it and send me into the other classroom. And I remember she grabbed my hand and dragged me in there. So then when I pointed this out to my mom, she said, alright then. Yeah. Now, other than that stinker, I also remember it. In the UK, we also had this thing called Transition Day, where it's a day where you get to go into new classrooms and everything. Now, Miss Ball was doing this thing like where you stick like your hand onto this thing and it's meant to look like an animal. My hand was very small at this time. I know it's like, oh my god. But my hand was very small. So then I stuck it down and it was like a tiger. So here's the head of the tiger. Just imagine that's a tiger. And my hand is like this big. So then the tiger looked like a starving person. So then Miss Ball shouted at me for it. What a great way to teach a young child to grow bigger. It works now. But year 2 was my worst year. First off, Miss Ball returned. And I've not mentioned this, but I was in after school club where they had this person called Shirley. Ooh, Shirley. This was Shirley. That's her neck. People refer to her as Fat Neck Shirley. I sort of feel bad. Anyways, I'll get back onto year 2. My teacher was called Miss Buckler. She had a lot of hair, and she also wore a skirt. And apparently, at parents' evenings, I overheard this conversation one time. She would make people feel very uncomfortable. Now, I'm not going to mention why, but she just would. So with Miss Ball being in here, and Miss Buckler being in here, and then just me being like, oh no, rubbish teachers, and Shirley being in here, and Shirley being in the after school club thing. It was just a rubbish year. Work was also not very fun. You're just learning your 2s, 5s and 10s. Yeah. And then came to year 3. Now, after the horrid year of year 2, I was kind of ready for a new year. No matter how bad this teacher would be, it would be miles better than year 2. So then came year 3. It was alright. We had this teacher called Miss Cox. And she was a very nice lady. I'm not joking. She was a very nice lady. I'm really sorry for my bad drawing. here because she was a very nice person. She would be like, she instead of like punishing bullies, she would actually have a conversation, like not punishing bullies instead of punishing others. She would actually have conversations and say what happened and would actually decide. So, anyways, then came year 3, and I was on this table, and for some reason, this table and another table next to this classroom was really small, by the way. It was about this big. That was like half the room. Anyway, so I was sitting on this table here, and this table and my table wanted to create a password, so only the two could go through. However, what ended up happening was, you know, like whenever you forget a password and you have to log in and it says, don't choose the same password. That's kind of what happened. I remember it was once, the new password is turtle, said one of them. And about 2 minutes later it was, the new password is unicorn. And young kids are just too soft. So, yeah, that ended up happening. Year 4. The teacher for year 4 was Miss Russell. Miss Russell, she was a pretty good teacher. I can also imagine her, instead of just punishing the kid and not the bullies or vice versa, she'd actually have a conversation about it as well. She was a pretty nice lady as well. Also, a thing about her that she'd always mention on a Friday is whenever, like, kids would shout a lot or, like, talk a lot, I was one of the culprits, she would say, well, I've got karaoke tonight, and if you hurt my voice, I will not get a good rating. So then, this would turn the culprit of the shouting, aka me, into looking like this, into looking like this. Not much of a change. But now we are going on to year 5. I just want to mention year 5 had Miss Cox again. Woo! Yeah, year 5, I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as year 4, even year 3. Because I was really weird. I was, like sometimes when you hear something for the first time and you really start saying it, but it's actually really bad or weird. That was me. I was under the impression of an American sweet is a drug. Thanks, classmates. Anyways, I also remember, I always imagined this as a war going on, because at this time, me and another classmate, I won't say the name, out of anger, or out of privacy, me and him, heated rivalries. And at some points, he might have punched me in my chest. And I wanted to mention, when I was younger, I was a very big teacher's pet, and I would never backchat, so... I'll be like pretending to die on the floor, be like crying my eyes out, while all that really happened was someone had pushed me. So then I'd pretend like, oh, he punched me, and it could have broken my rib cage, and some of my rib cage could have gone into my lungs. All that really happened was he accidentally bumped into me. So I was really hated, I would have said. Now in year 6, oh, hang on, running out of time.